Innistrad Crimson Vow, white cards. Adamant Will, 1 and a white for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains indestructible until end of turn. Angelic Quartermaster, 3 and 2 white for a creature. Angel Soldier, 3/3. Flying. When Angelic Quartermaster enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 other target creatures. Arm the Cathars, 1 and 2 white for a sorcery. Until end of turn, target creature gets +3/+3, up to 1 other target creature gets +2/+2, and up to 1 other target creature gets +1/+1. Those creatures gain vigilance until end of turn. Bride's Gown, 1 and a white for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. It gets an additional +0/+2 and has first strike as long as an equipment named Groom's Finery is attached to a creature you control. Equipped for 2. By invitation only, 3 and 2 white for a sorcery. Choose a number between 0 and 13. Each player sacrifices that many creatures. Cemetery Protector, 2 and 2 white for a creature, human soldier, 3/4. When Cemetery Protector enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, if it shares a card type with the exiled card, create a 1/1 white human creature token. Circle of Confinement. Enchantment for 1 and a white. When Circle of Confinement enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or less until Circle of Confinement leaves the battlefield. Whenever an opponent casts a vampire spell with the same name as a card exiled with Circle of Confinement, you gain 2 life. Dawnheart Geist, 1 and a white for a creature, Spirit Warlock, 1/3. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 2 life. Estwald Shield Basher, 3 and a white for a creature, human soldier, 4/2. Whenever Estwald Shield Basher attacks, you may pay 1. If you do, it gains indestructible until end of turn. Fierce Retribution, 1 and a white for an instant. Cleave, 5 and a white. Destroy target, bracket, and attacking, end bracket, creature. Fleeting Spirit, 1 and a white. Creature Spirit, 3/1. 1 white mana. Exile 3 cards from your graveyard. Fleeting Spirit gains first strike until end of turn. Discard a card. Exile Fleeting Spirit. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Graf Reaver, 2 and a white. Creature, human knight. Flying, training, 2/1. Griffwing Cavalry, 3 and a white for a creature, human knight, 2/2. Flying, training. Whenever Griffwing Cavalry attacks, you may pay 1 and a white. If you do, target attacking creature without flying gains flying until end of turn. Hallowed Haunting, 2 and 2 white, enchantment. As long as you control 7 or more enchantments, creatures you control have flying and vigilance. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, create a white Spirit Cleric creature token with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of spirits you control. Heron of Hope, 3 and a white. Creature bird, 2/3. Flying. If you would gain life, you gain that much life plus 1 instead. 1 and a white. Heron of Hope gains lifelink until end of turn. Heron Blessed Geist, 4 and a white for a creature. Spirit, 3/3. 3 and a white. Exile Heron Blessed Geist from your graveyard. Create 2 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying. Activate only if you control an enchantment and only as a sorcery. Hopeful Initiate, 1 white. Creature, human warlock, 1/2. Training, 2 and a white. Remove 2 +1/+1 counters from among creatures you control. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Lantern Flare, 1 and a white for an instant. Cleave, X, red, and white. Lantern Flare deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you gain X life. X is the number of creatures you control. Militia Rallier, 2 and a white. Creature, human soldier, 3/3. Militia Rallier can't attack alone. Whenever Militia Rallier attacks, untap target creature. Nebelgast Beguiler, 4 and a white for a creature, Spirit, 2/5. 1 white and a tap. Tap target creature. Nurturing Presence. 1 and a white for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. When Nurturing Presence enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. Olenbach Escort. 1 white. Creature, human cleric, 1/1. Vigilance. Sacrifice Olenbach Escort. Target creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it gains lifelink and indestructible until end of turn. Parish Blade Trainee. 1 and a white. Creature, human soldier. Training. When Parish Blade Trainee dies, put its counters on target creature you control. Piercing Light. 1 white. Instant. Piercing Light deals 2 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Scry 1. Resistance Squad. 2 and a white. When Resistance Squad enters the battlefield, if you control another human, draw a card. 3/2. Sanctify. 1 and a white for a sorcery. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. You gain 3 life. Savior of Olenbach. 1 and 2 white for a creature. Human soldier. 1/2. Training. Whenever Savior of Olenbach trains, exile up to 1 other target creature from the battlefield or creature card from a graveyard. When Savior of Olenbach leaves the battlefield, put the exiled cards onto the battlefield under their owner's control. Sigarda's Imprisonment. 2 and a white for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature can't attack or block. 4 and a white. Exile enchanted creature. Create a blood token. Sigarda's Summons. 4 and 2 white for an enchantment. Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have base power and toughness 4/4, have flying, and are angels in addition to their other types. Supernatural Rescue. 3 and a white for an enchantment aura. This spell has flash as long as you control a spirit. When you cast this spell, tap up to 2 target creatures you don't control. Enchant creature you control. Enchanted creature gets +1/+2. Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. 1 and a white for a legendary creature human soldier. 2/1. First Strike. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. Traveling Minister. 1 white for a creature human cleric. 1/1. Tap. Target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. You gain 1 life. Activate only as a sorcery. Unholy Officiant. 1 white for a creature vampire cleric. 1/2. Vigilance. 4 and a white. Put a 1/1 counter on Unholy Officiant. Valorous Stance. 1 and a white. Instant. Choose 1. Target creature gains indestructible until end of turn. Destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater. Vampire Slayer. 1 and a white for a creature human soldier. 2/2. Whenever Vampire Slayer deals damage to a vampire, destroy that creature. Voice of the Blessed. 2 white for a creature spirit cleric. 2/2. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Voice of the Blessed. As long as Voice of the Blessed has 4 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has flying and vigilance. As long as Voice of the Blessed has 10 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has indestructible. 2/2. Welcoming Vampire. 2 and a white. Creature vampire. Flying. Whenever 1 or more creatures with power 2 or less enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. That's a 2/3 creature vampire. Blue. Alchemist's Retrieval. 1 blue for an instant. Cleave 1 and a blue. Return target non-land permanent, bracket, you control, end bracket, to its owner's hand. Cemetery Illuminator. 1 and 2 blue for a creature, spirit, 2/3, flying. Whenever Cemetery Illuminator enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. Once each turn, you may cast a spell from the top of your library if it shares a card type with a card exiled with Cemetery Illuminator. Chill of the Grave, 2 and a blue, instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast if you control a zombie. Tap target creature. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Draw a card. Cobbled Lancer. 1 blue for a creature, zombie horse, 3/3. As an additional cost to cast this spell, exile a creature card from your graveyard. 3 and a blue. Exile Cobbled Lancer from your graveyard. Draw a card. Consuming Tide. 2 and 2 blue for a sorcery. Each player chooses a non-land permanent they control. Return all non-land permanents not chosen this way to their owner's hands. Then you draw a card for each opponent who has more cards in their hand than you. Cradle of Safety. 1 and a blue for an enchantment aura. Flash. Enchant creature you control. When Cradle of Safety enters the battlefield, enchanted creature gains hexproof until end of turn. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1. Cruel Witness. 2 and 2 blue for a 3/3 creature bird horror. Flying. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, look at the top card of your library. You may put that card into your graveyard. Diver Scab. 3 and 2 blue for a 3/5 creature zombie. Exploit. When Diver Scab exploits a creature, target creature's owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. Dreadlight Monstrosity. 4 and 2 blue for a creature, 5/5 crab horror. Ward 2. 3 and 2 blue. Dreadlight Monstrosity can't be blocked this turn. Activate only if you own a card in exile. Dream Shackle Geist. 1 and 2 blue for a creature, spirit, 3/1. Flying. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose up to 1. Tap target creature. Target creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Fear of Death. 1 and a blue for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. When Fear of Death enters the battlefield, mill 2 cards. Enchanted creature gets -X/-0, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard. Geistlight Snare. 2 and a blue. Instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast if you control a spirit. It also costs 1 less to cast if you control an enchantment. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. Geralf. Visionary Stitcher. 2 and a blue for a 1/4 legendary creature, human wizard. Zombies you control have flying. 1 blue and a tap. Sacrifice another non-token creature. Create an XX blue zombie creature token where X is the sacrificed creature's toughness. Hullbreaker Horror. 5 and 2 blue for a creature, Kraken Horror, 7/8. Flash. This spell can't be countered. Whenever you cast a spell, choose up to 1. Return target spell you don't control to its owner's hand. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Inspired Idea. 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Cleave. 3 and 2 blue. Draw 3 cards. Bracket. Your maximum hand size is reduced to 3 for the rest of the game. End bracket. Lunar Rejection. 1 and a blue for an instant. Cleave. 3 and a blue. Return target, open bracket, wolf or werewolf, end bracket, creature to its owner's hand. Draw a card. Necroduality. 3 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever a non-token zombie enters the battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Overcharged Amalgam. 2 and 2 blue for a 3/3 creature, zombie horror. Flash, flying, exploit. When Overcharged Amalgam exploits a creature, counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. Patchwork Crawler. 1 and a blue for a creature, zombie horror, 1/2. 2 and a blue. Exile target creature card from your graveyard and put a +1/+1 counter on Patchwork Crawler. Patchwork Crawler has all activated abilities of all creature cards exiled with it. Repository Scab, 3 and a blue for a 3/3 creature, zombie. Exploit. When Repository Scab exploits a creature, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Scattered Thoughts, 3 and a blue for an instant. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put 2 of those cards into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Screaming Swarm, 5 and a blue for a creature, bird horror, 4/4. Flying. Whenever you attack with one or more creature, target player mills that many cards. 2 and a blue. Put Screaming Swarm from your graveyard into your library, second from the top. Selhoff Entomber, 1 and a blue for a 1/3 creature, zombie. Tap to discard a creature card, draw a card. Serpentine Ambush, 1 and a blue for an instant. Until end of turn, target creature becomes a blue serpent with base power and toughness 5/5. Warp Scab, 3 and 2 blue for a 2/5 creature, zombie drake. Flying. When Warp Scab enters the battlefield, you may exile 2 creature cards from your graveyard. If you do, draw a card. Steelclad Spirit, 1 and a blue. Creature, spirit. Defender. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, Steelclad Spirit can attack this turn as though it didn't have Defender. 3/3. Stitched Assistant, 2 and a blue for a 3/2 creature, zombie. Exploit. When Stitched Assistant exploits a creature, scry 1, then draw a card. Storm Chaser Drake, 1 and a blue for a 2/1 creature, Drake. Flying. Whenever Storm Chaser Drake becomes the target of a spell you control, draw a card. Syncopate, X and a blue, instant. Counter target spell unless its controller pays X. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. Siphon Essence, 2 and a blue for an instant. Counter target creature or planeswalker spell. Create a blood token. Thirst for Discovery, 2 and a blue for an instant. Draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards, unless you discard a basic land card. Wanderlight Spirit, 2 and a blue for a 2/3 creature, spirit. Flying. Wanderlight Spirit can block only creatures with flying. Wash Away, 1 blue for an instant. Cleave, 1 and a blue. Counter target spell, open bracket, that wasn't cast from its owner's hand, close bracket. Whispering Wizard, 3 and a blue for a 3/2 creature, human wizard. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. This ability triggers only once each turn. Winged Portent, 1 and 2 blue, instant. Cleave, 4 green-blue. Draw a card for each creature, open bracket, with flying, end bracket, you control. Witness the Future, 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Target player shuffles up to 4 target cards from their graveyard into their library. You look at the top 4 cards of your library, then put one of those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Wretched Throng, 1 and a blue, creature, zombie horror, 2/1. When Wretched Throng dies, you may search your library for a card named Wretched Throng, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Black, aim for the head, 2 and a black for a sorcery, choose 1. Exile target zombie, target opponent exiles 2 cards from their hand. Archghoul of Thraben, 2 and a black for a creature, zombie cleric. Whenever Archghoul of Thraben or another zombie you control dies, look at the top card of your library. If it's a zombie card, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. If you don't put the card into your hand, you may put it into your graveyard. That's a 3/2 zombie cleric. Bleed Dry, 2 and 2 black for an instant. Target creature gets -13 until end of turn. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. Blood Fountain, 1 black, artifact. When Blood Fountain enters the battlefield, create a blood token. 3 and a black and tap, sacrifice Blood Fountain. Return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. Blood Crazed Socialite, 3 and a black. Creature, vampire, 3/3 with menace. When Blood Crazed Socialite enters the battlefield, create a blood token. Whenever Blood Crazed Socialite attacks, you may sacrifice a blood token. If you do, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. That's a 3/3 creature vampire. Blood Vial Purveyor, 2 and 2 black for a 5/6 creature vampire. Flying, trample. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, that player creates a blood token. Whenever Blood Vial Purveyor attacks, it gets +1/+0 for each blood token defending player controls. Cemetery Desecrator, 4 and 2 black for a 4/4 creature, zombie, menace. When Cemetery Desecrator enters the battlefield or dies, exile another card from a graveyard. When you do, choose 1. Remove X counters from target permanent, where X is the mana value of the exiled card. Target creature an opponent controls gets -X/-X until end of turn, where X is the mana value of the exiled card. Courier Bat, 2 and a black for a 2/2 creature, bat. Flying. When Courier Bat enters the battlefield, if you gained life this turn, return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Demonic Bargain, 2 and a black for a sorcery. Exile the top 13 cards of your library, then search your library for a card. Put that card into your hand, then shuffle. Dire Graf Scavenger, 3 and a black for a creature, zombie bear. Death Touch. When Dire Graf Scavenger enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. If a creature card was exiled this way, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. That's a 2/3 creature, zombie bear. Doomed Dissenter, 1 and a black for a 1/1 creature, human. When Doomed Dissenter dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Dread Fugue, 1 black for a sorcery, cleave, 2 and a black. Target player reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it, open bracket, with mana value 2 or less, end bracket. That player discards that card. Dread Feast Demon, 5 and 2 black for a 6/6 creature, demon. Flying. At the beginning of your end step, sacrifice a non-demon creature. If you do, create a token that's a copy of Dread Feast Demon. Dying to Serve, 2 and a black, enchantment. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. Edgar's Awakening, 3 and 2 black for a sorcery. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. When you discard Edgar's Awakening, you may pay 1 black. When you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Falcon Wrath Forebear, 2 and a black for a 3/1 creature, vampire. Flying. Falcon Wrath Forebear can't block. Whenever Falcon Wrath Forebear deals combat damage to a player, create a blood token. 1 black, sacrifice 2 blood tokens. Return Falcon Wrath Forebear from your graveyard to the battlefield. Fel Stinger, 2 and a black for a 3/2 creature, zombie scorpion, death touch, exploit. When Fel Stinger exploits a creature, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. Gift of Fangs, 1 black for an enchantment, aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 as long as it's a vampire. Otherwise it gets -2/-2. Gluttonous Guest, 2 and a black for a creature, vampire. When Gluttonous Guest enters the battlefield, create a blood token. Whenever you sacrifice a blood token, you gain 1 life. That's a 1/4 creature, vampire. Graf Reaver, 1 and a black for a 3/3 creature, zombie warrior. Exploit. When Graf Reaver exploits a creature, destroy target planeswalker. At the beginning of your upkeep, Graf Reaver deals 1 damage to you. Grisly Ritual, 5 and a black for a sorcery. Destroy target creature or planeswalker, create 2 blood tokens. Groom's Finery, 1 and a black for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. It gets an additional +0/+2 and has Death Touch as long as an equipment named Bride's Gown is attached to a creature you control. Equipped for 2. Headless Rider, 2 and a black for a 3/1 creature, zombie. Whenever Headless Rider or another non-token zombie you control dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Hero's Downfall, 1 and 2 black for an instant, destroy target creature or planeswalker. Mind Leech Ghoul, 1 and a black for a 2/2 creature, zombie, exploit. When Mind Leech Ghoul exploits a creature, each opponent exiles a card from their hand. Parasitic Grasp, 1 and a black for an instant, cleave 1 and 2 black. Parasitic Grasp deals 3 damage to target (human) and creature. You gain 3 life. Path of Peril, 1 and 2 black. For a sorcery, cleave 4 white-black. Destroy all creatures, with mana value 2 or less, Persistent Specimen, 1 black for a 1/1 creature skeleton. 2 and a black, return Persistent Specimen from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Pointed Discussion. 2 and a black for a sorcery. You draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, then create a blood token. Rot-Tide Gargantua. 3 and 2 black for a 5/4 creature, zombie kraken. Exploit. When Rot-Tide Gargantua exploits a creature, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Skulking Killer, 3 and a black for a 4/2 creature, vampire assassin. When Skulking Killer enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn if that opponent controls no other creatures. Sorin the Mirthless, 2 and 2 black for a legendary planeswalker, Sorin. Look at the top card of your library. This is the +1 power. Look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card and put it into your hand. If you do, you lose life equal to its mana value. -2. Create a 2/3 black vampire creature token with flying and lifelink. -7. Sorin the Mirthless deals 13 damage to any target. You gain 13 life. 4 loyalty counters. Toxiril the Corrosive, 5 and 2 black for a 7/7 legendary creature, Slug Horror. At the beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. Whenever a creature you don't control with a slime counter on it dies, create a 1/1 black slug creature token. Blue-black, sacrifice a slug, draw a card. Undead Butler, 1 and a black for a 1/2 zombie creature. When Undead Butler enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. When Undead Butler dies, you may exile it. When you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Undying Malice, 1 black for an instant. Until end of turn, target creature gains. When this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Unhallowed Phalanx, 4 and a black for a 1/13 creature, zombie soldier. Unhallowed Phalanx enters the battlefield tapped. Vampire's Kiss, 1 and a black for a sorcery. Target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Create 2 blood tokens. Wedding Security, 3 and 2 black for a 4/4 creature, vampire soldier. That's just vampire soldier, not a zombie. Whenever Wedding Security attacks, you may sacrifice a blood token. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Wedding Security and draw a card. A Braid, 1 and a red. For an instant, choose one. A Braid deals 3 damage to target creature. Destroy target artifact. Alchemist's Gambit, 1 and 2 red for a sorcery. Cleave, 4, 2 blue, red. Take an extra turn after this one. During that turn, damage can't be prevented. Open bracket. At the beginning of that turn's end step, you lose the game, end bracket. Exile Alchemist's Gambit. Ancestral Anger, 1 red for a sorcery. Target creature gains trample and gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is 1 plus the number of cards named Ancestral Anger in your graveyard. Draw a card. Belligerent Guest, 2 and a red for a 3/2 creature, vampire. Trample. Whenever Belligerent Guest deals combat damage to a player, create a blood token. Blood Hypnotist, 2 and a red for a 3/3 creature, vampire. Blood Hypnotist can't block. Whenever you sacrifice 1 or more blood tokens, target creature can't block this turn. This ability triggers only once each turn. Blood Petal Celebrant, 1 and a red for a 2/1 creature, vampire. Blood Petal Celebrant has first strike as long as it's attacking. When Blood Petal Celebrant dies, create a blood token. That's a 2/1 vampire. Bloody Betrayal, sorcery for 2 and a red. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn. Create a blood token. Cemetery Gatekeeper, 1 and a red for a 2/1 creature, vampire. First strike. When Cemetery Gatekeeper enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard. Whenever a player plays a land or casts a spell, if it shares a card type with the exiled card, Cemetery Gatekeeper deals 2 damage to that player. Chandra, Dress to Kill, 1 and 2 red for a 3 loyalty legendary planeswalker, Chandra. +1, add a red. Chandra, Dress to Kill deals 1 damage to up to 1 target player or planeswalker. +1, exile the top card of your library. If it's red, you may cast it this turn. -7, exile the top 5 cards of your library. You may cast red spells from among them this turn. You get an emblem with, whenever you cast a red spell, this emblem deals X damage to any target, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. Change of Fortune, 3 and a red for a sorcery. Discard your hand, then draw a card for each card you've discarded this turn. Creepy Puppeteer, 3 and a red for a creature, human rogue, haste, 4/3. Whenever Creepy Puppeteer attacks, if you attacked with exactly 1 other creature this combat, you may have that creature's base power and toughness become 4/3 until end of turn. Curse of Hospitality, 2 and a red, enchantment Aura Curse. Enchant player. Creatures attacking enchanted player have trample. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to enchanted player, that player exiles the top card of their library. Until end of turn, that creature's controller may play that card, and they may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. Daybreak Combatants, 2 and a red for a 2/2 creature, human warrior. Haste. When Daybreak Combatants enters the battlefield, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Dominating Vampire, 1 and 2 red for a 3/3 creature, vampire. When Dominating Vampire enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature with mana value less than or equal to the number of vampires you control until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn. That was a 3/3 vampire. End the Festivities, 1 red for a sorcery. End the Festivities deals 1 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. Falconwrath Celebrants, 4 and a red for a 4/4 creature, vampire, menace. When Falcon Wrath Celebrants enters the battlefield, create 2 blood tokens. Flame Blessed Bolt, 1 red for an instant. Flame Blessed Bolt deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that creature or planeswalker would die this turn, exile it instead. Frenzied Devils, 4 and a red for a 3/3 creature, Devil. Haste. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Frenzied Devils gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Honeymoon Hearse, 2 and a red for a 5/5 artifact, Vehicle. Trample. Tap 2 untapped creatures you control. Honeymoon Hearse becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. Hungry Ridge Wolf, 1 and a red for a 2/2 creature, Wolf. As long as you control another wolf or werewolf, Hungry Ridge Wolf gets +1/+0 and has trample. Into the Night. 3 and a red for a sorcery. It becomes night. Discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards +1. Kessig Flame Breather, 1 and a red for a 1/3 creature, human shaman. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Kessig Flame Breather deals 1 damage to each opponent. Kessig Wolf Rider, 1 red for a 1/2 creature, human knight, menace. 2 and a red and tap. Exile 3 cards from your graveyard. Create a 3/2 red wolf creature token. Lacerate Flesh, 4 and a red for a sorcery. Lacerate Flesh deals 4 damage to target creature. Create a number of blood tokens equal to the amount of excess damage dealt to that creature this way. Lightning Wolf, 3 and a red for a 4/3 creature, Wolf. 1 and a red, Lightning Wolf gains first strike until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Magma Pummeller, X and 2 red for a 0/0 creature, elemental. Magma Pummeller enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. If damage would be dealt to Magma Pummeller while it has a +1/+1 counter on it, prevent that damage and remove that many +1/+1 counters from it. When 1 or more counters are removed from Magma Pummeller this way, it deals that much damage to any target. Maniform Hellkite, 2 and 2 red for a 4/4 creature, dragon, flying. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX red dragon illusion creature token with flying and haste, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. Exile that token at the beginning of the next end step. Markov Retribution, 2 and a red for a sorcery. Choose 1 or both. Creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Target vampire you control deals damage equal to its power to another target creature. Olivia's Attendants, 4 and 2 red for a 6/6 creature, vampire. Menace. Whenever Olivia's Attendants deals damage, create that many blood tokens. 2 and a red. Olivia's Attendants deals 1 damage to any target. Pyre Spawn, 4 and 2 red for a 6/4 creature, elemental. When Pyre Spawn dies, it deals 3 damage to any target. Reckless Impulse, sorcery for 1 and a red. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. Rending Flame, 2 and a red for an instant. Rending Flame deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that permanent is a spirit, Rending Flame also deals 2 damage to that permanent's controller. Rune-Bound Wolf, 1 and a red for a 2/2 creature, wolf. 3 and a red and tap. Rune-Bound Wolf deals damage equal to the number of wolves and werewolves you control to target opponent. Sanguine Statuette, 1 and a red for an artifact. When Sanguine Statuette enters the battlefield, create a blood token. Whenever you sacrifice a blood token, you may have Sanguine Statuette become a 3/3 vampire artifact creature with haste until end of turn. Stensia Uprising, 2 and 2 red for an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, create a 1/1 red human creature token. Then, if you control exactly 13 permanents, you may sacrifice Stensia Uprising. When you do, it deals 7 damage to any target. Sure Strike, 1 and a red for an instant. Target creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. Vampire's Vengeance, 2 and a red for an instant. Vampire's Vengeance deals 2 damage to each non-vampire creature. Create a blood token. Voldaren Epicure, 1 red for a 1/1 creature, vampire. When Voldaren Epicure enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Create a blood token. Green. Apprentice Sharpshooter, 2 and a green for a 1/4 creature, human archer, reach, training. Ascendant Pack Leader, 1 green for a 2/1 creature, wolf. Ascendant Pack Leader enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it if you control a permanent with mana value 4 or greater. Whenever you cast a spell with mana value 4 or greater, put a +1/+1 counter on Ascendant Pack Leader. Bramble Armor, 1 and a green. Artifact equipment. When Bramble Armor enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. Equipped creature gets +2/+1. Equip 4. Bramble Worm, 6 and a green for a 7/6 creature, worm. Reach, trample. When Bramble Worm enters the battlefield, you gain 5 life. 2 and a green. Exile Bramble Worm from your graveyard, you gain 5 life. Cartographer's Survey, 3 and a green for a sorcery. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. Put up to 2 land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Cemetery Prowler, 1 and 2 green for a 3/4 creature, wolf, vigilance. Whenever Cemetery Prowler enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each card type they share with cards exiled with Cemetery Prowler. Cloaked Cadet, 4 and a green, creature human ranger, 2/4. Training. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on 1 or more humans you control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Crawling Infestation, 2 and a green for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may mill 2 cards. Whenever 1 or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere during your turn, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. Crushing Canopy, 2 and a green for an instant. Choose 1. Destroy target creature with flying. Destroy target enchantment. Cultivator Colossus, 4 and 3 green for a star creature, plant, beast. Trample. Cultivator Colossus's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. When Cultivator Colossus enters the battlefield, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. If you do, draw a card and repeat this process. Dawnheart Disciple, 1 and a green for a 2/2 creature, human warlock. Whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, Dawnheart Disciple gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Dig Up, 1 green for a sorcery. Cleave, 1 black-green. Search your library for a, open bracket, basic land, end bracket, card, open bracket, reveal it, end bracket, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Flourishing Hunter, 4 and 2 green for a 6/6 creature, wolf spirit. When Flourishing Hunter enters the battlefield, you gain life equal to the greatest toughness among other creatures you control. Glorious Sunrise, 3 and 2 green, enchantment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose 1. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample until end of turn. Target land gains tap, add 3 green until end of turn. Draw a card if you control a creature with power 3 or greater. You gain 3 life. Hamlet Vanguard, 2 and a green for a 1/1 creature, human warrior, ward 2. Hamlet Vanguard enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it for each other non-token human you control. Hiveheart Shaman, 3 and a green for a 3/5 creature, human shaman. Whenever Hiveheart Shaman attacks, you may search your library for a basic land card that doesn't share a land type with a land you control. Put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle. 5 and a green. Create a 1/1 green insect creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. Activate only as a sorcery. That's a 3/5 creature human shaman. Howling Moon, 2 and a green, enchantment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target wolf or werewolf you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, create a 2/2 green wolf creature token. Laid to Rest, 3 and a green. Enchantment. Whenever a human you control dies, draw a card. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, you gain 3 life. Sorry, you gain 2 life. Massive Might, 1 green, instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains trample until end of turn. Mold Graf Millipede, 4 and a green for a 2/2 creature, insect horror. When Mold Graf Millipede enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards, then put a +1/+1 counter on Mold Graf Millipede for each creature card in your graveyard. Mulch, 1 and a green for a sorcery. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put all land cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Nature's Embrace, 2 and a green for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature or land. As long as enchanted permanent is a creature, it gets +2/+2. As long as enchanted permanent is a land, it has tap, add 2 mana of any one color. Pack Song Pup, 1 and a green for a 1/1 creature, wolf. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control another wolf or werewolf, put a +1/+1 counter on Pack Song Pup. When Pack Song Pup dies, you gain life equal to its power. Reclusive Taxidermist, 1 and a green for a 1/2 creature, human druid. Reclusive Taxidermist gets +3/+2 as long as there are 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard. Tap to add 1 mana of any color. Retrieve, 2 and a green, sorcery. Return up to 1 target creature card and up to 1 target non-creature permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Exile, retrieve. Rural Recruit, 3 and a green, for a 1/1 creature, human peasant. Training. When Rural Recruit enters the battlefield, create a 3/1 green boar creature token. Saw Blade Slinger, 3 and a green for a 4/3 creature, human archer. When Saw Blade Slinger enters the battlefield, choose up to 1. Destroy target artifact and opponent controls. Saw Blade Slinger fights target zombie and opponent controls. Sheltering Boughs, 2 and a green for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. When Sheltering Boughs enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enchanted creature gets +1/+3. Snarling Wolf, 1 green for a 1/1 creature, wolf. 1 and a green, Snarling Wolf gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Activate only once each turn. Spiked Ripsaw, 2 and a green for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +3/+3. Whenever equipped creature attacks, you may sacrifice a forest. If you do, that creature gains trample until end of turn. Equip for 3. Splendid Reclamation, 3 and a green for a sorcery. Return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Spore Crawler, 2 and a green for a creature, fungus, 3/2. When Spore Crawler dies, draw a card. Sporeback Wolf, 1 and a green for a 2/2 creature, wolf. As long as it's your turn, Sporeback Wolf gets +0/+2. Toxic Scorpion, 1 and a green for a 1/1 creature, scorpion, death touch. When Toxic Scorpion enters the battlefield, another target creature you control gains death touch until end of turn. Witch's Web, 1 and a green for an instant. Target creature gets +3/+3 and gains reach until end of turn. Untap it. Wolf Strike, 2 and a green for an instant. Target creature you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn if it's night. Then it deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Multicolored, Ancient Lumberknot, 2 black green for a 1/4 creature, tree folk. Excuse me. Each creature you control with toughness greater than its power assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Anjay, Maid of Dishonor, 2 black-red for a 4/5 legendary creature vampire. Whenever Anjay, Maid of Dishonor, and/or one or more other vampires enter the battlefield under your control, create a blood token. This ability triggers only once each turn. Pay 2 mana. Sacrifice another creature or a blood token. Each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. Blood Tithe Harvester, black-red for a 3/2 creature vampire. When Blood Tithe Harvester enters the battlefield, create a blood token. Tap to sacrifice Blood Tithe Harvester. Target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn, where X is twice the number of blood tokens you control. Activate only as a sorcery. Eruth, Tormented Prophet, 1 blue-red for a 2/4 legendary creature human wizard. If you would draw a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library instead. You may play those cards this turn. Grolnok the Omnivore, 2 green-blue for a 3/3 legendary creature, frog. Whenever a frog you control attacks, mill 3 cards. Whenever a permanent card is put into your graveyard from your library, exile it with a croak counter on it. You may play lands and cast spells from among cards you own in exile with croak counters on them. Halana and Alina, partners, 2 red-green. For a 2/3 legendary creature, human ranger, first strike, reach. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control, where X is Halana and Alina's power. That creature gains haste until end of turn. Kaya, Geist Hunter, 1 white-black for a 3 loyalty counter, legendary planeswalker, Kaya. +1. Creatures you control gain Death Touch until end of turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature token you control. -2. Until end of turn, if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. -6. Exile all cards from all graveyards, then create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying for each card exiled this way. Markov Purifier, 1 white-black for a 2/3 creature vampire cleric. Lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, you may pay 2. If you do, draw a card. Markov Waltzer, 2 red-white for a 1/3 creature vampire, flying, haste. At the beginning of combat on your turn, up to 2 target creatures you control each get +1/+0 until end of turn. Audric, Blood Cursed, 1 red-white for a 3/3 legendary creature, vampire soldier. When Audric, Blood Cursed enters the battlefield, create X blood tokens, where X is the number of abilities from among Flying, First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance, found among creatures you control. Count each ability only once. Old Rhett Stein, 1 black-green for a 1/4 legendary creature, human peasant. When Old Rhett Stein enters the battlefield or at the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card. If a land card is milled this way, create a treasure token. If a creature card is milled this way, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. If a non-creature, non-land card is milled this way, create a blood token. Olivia, Crimson Bride, 4 black-red for a 3/4 legendary creature, vampire noble. Flying, haste. Whenever Olivia Crimson Bride attacks, Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains when you don't control a legendary vampire. Exile this creature. Ciguardian Paladin, 2 green-white for a 4/4 creature human knight. As long as you've put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature this turn, Ciguardian Paladin has trample and lifelink. 1 green-white. Target creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it gains trample and lifelink until end of turn. That's a 4/4 creature human knight. Skull Scab, blue-black for a 2/2 creature zombie. Exploit. Whenever a creature you control exploits a non-token creature, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Tauren's Fist of the Angels, 1 green-white. Legendary creature human cleric 2/2. Training. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 green and white human soldier creature token with training. Vile Spawn Spider, green-blue for a 2/3 creature spider, reach. At the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card. 2 green-blue and tap. Sacrifice Vile Spawn Spider. Create a 1/1 green insect creature token for each creature card in your graveyard. Activate only as a sorcery. Wandering Mind, 1 blue-red. 2/1 creature horror. Flying. When Wandering Mind enters the battlefield, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Artifact. Blood Servitor, 3 for a 2/2 artifact creature construct. When Blood Servitor enters the battlefield, create a blood token. Boarded Window, 3 for an artifact. Creatures attacking you get -1/-0. At the beginning of each end step, if you were dealt 4 or more damage this turn, exile Boarded Window. Ceremonial Knife, 1 for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has, whenever this creature deals combat damage, create a blood token. Equip for 2. Dollhouse of Horrors, 5 for an artifact. 1 and tap, exile a creature card from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of the exiled card, except it's a 0/0 construct artifact in addition to its other types, and it has, this creature gets +1/+1 for each construct you control. It gains haste until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Honored Heirloom, 3 for an artifact. Tap to add 1 mana of any color. 2 and tap to exile target card from a graveyard. Investigator's Journal, 2 for an artifact. Clue. Investigator's Journal enters the battlefield with a number of suspect counters on it equal to the greatest number of creatures a player controls. 2 and tap, remove a suspect counter from Investigator's Journal, draw a card. 2, sacrifice Investigator's Journal, draw a card. Lantern of the Lost, 1 for an artifact. When Lantern of the Lost enters the battlefield, exile target card from a graveyard. 1 and tap, exile Lantern of the Lost. Exile all cards from all graveyards, then draw a card. Wedding Invitation, 2 for an artifact. When Wedding Invitation enters the battlefield, draw a card. Tap, sacrifice Wedding Invitation. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. If it's a vampire, it also gains lifelink until end of turn. Land, Deathcap Glade. Deathcap Glade enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Tap to add black or green. Dreamroot Cascade. Dreamroot Cascade enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Tap to add green or blue. Evolving Wilds. Tap to sacrifice Evolving Wilds. Search your library for a basic land card. Put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Shattered Sanctum. Shattered Sanctum enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Tap to add white or black. Storm Carved Coast. Storm Carved Coast enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Tap to add blue or red. Sundown Pass, land. Sundown Pass enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Tap to add red or white. Voldaren Estate, land. Tap to add a colorless. Tap to pay 1 life, add 1 mana of any color, spend this mana only to cast a vampire spell. 5 and a tap, create a blood token. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each vampire you control. Plains, island, swamp, mountain, forest. Double-faced cards. Distracting Geist, 2 and a white for a creature, spirit. Whenever Distracting Geist attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. I never did enjoy studying. Backside, Clever Distraction, Enchantment Aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has, whenever this creature attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. If Clever Distraction would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Drogskull Infantry, 1 and a white for a 2/2 creature, Spirit Soldier. Disturb for 3 and a white. Backside, Drogskull Armaments, Enchantment Aura, Enchant Creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2. If Drogskull Armaments would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Faithbound Judge, 1 and 2 white for a Spirit Soldier 4/4 creature. Defender Flying Vigilance. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Faithbound Judge has 2 or fewer judgment counters on it, put a judgment counter on it. As long as Faithbound Judge has 3 or more judgment counters on it, it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. Disturb for 5 and 2 white. Backside, Sinner's Judgment, Enchantment Aura Curse, Enchant Player. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a judgment counter on Sinner's Judgment. Then, if there are 3 or more judgment counters on it, enchanted player loses the game. If Sinner's Judgment would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Catilda, Dawnheart Martyr, 1 and 2 white for a star legendary creature, Spirit Warlock. Flying, lifelink, protection from vampires. Catilda Dawnheart Martyr's power and toughness are each equal to the number of permanents you control that are spirits and or enchantments. Disturb for 3 and 2 white. Backside, Catilda's Rising Dawn, legendary enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has flying, lifelink, and protection from vampires, and it gets +X/+X, where X is the number of permanents you control that are spirits and or enchantments. If Catilda's Rising Dawn would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Kindly Ancestor, 2 and a white for a 2/3 spirit creature with lifelink and disturb 1 and a white. Backside, Ancestor's Embrace, Enchantment Aura, Enchant Creature. Enchanted creature has lifelink. If Ancestor's Embrace would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Panicked Bystander, 1 and a white for a 2/2 creature, Human Peasant. Whenever Panicked Bystander or another creature you control dies, you gain 1 life. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained 3 or more life this turn, transform Panicked Bystander. Backside, Cackling Culprit, 3/5 creature, Human Rogue. Whenever Cackling Culprit or another creature you control dies, you gain 1 life. 1 and a black, Cackling Culprit gains Death Touch until end of turn. Radiant Grace, 1 white for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and has vigilance. When enchanted creature dies, return Radiant Grace to the battlefield transformed under your control attached to target opponent. Backside, Radiant Restraints. Enchant player. Creatures enchanted player controls enters the battlefield tapped. Twin Blade Geist, 1 and a white for a 1/1 creature, Spirit Warrior, double strike, disturb, 2 and a white. Backside, Twin Blade Invocation, Enchantment Aura, Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has double strike. If Twin Blade Invocation would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Wedding Announcement, 2 and a white for an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, put an invitation counter on Wedding Announcement. If you attacked with 2 or more creatures this turn, draw a card. Otherwise, create a 1/1 white human creature token. Then, if Wedding Announcement has 3 or more invitation counters on it, transform it. Backside, Wedding Festivity, creatures you control get +1/+1. Binding Geist, 2 and a blue for a 3/1 creature spirit. Whenever Binding Geist attacks, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-0 until end of turn. Disturb, 1 and a blue. Spectral Binding on the back. Enchantment Aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets -2/-0. If Spectral Binding would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Biolume Egg, 2 and a blue for a 0/4 creature, Serpent Egg, Defender. When Biolume Egg enters the battlefield, scry 2. When you sacrifice Biolume Egg, return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Backside, Biolume Serpent, a 4/4 creature, Serpent. Sacrifice 2 islands. Biolume Serpent can't be blocked this turn. Gutter's Skulker, 3 and a blue for a 3/3 creature, Spirit. Gutter's Skulker can't be blocked as long as it's attacking alone. Disturb for 3 and a blue. Backside, Gutter Shortcut. Enchantment Aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature can't be blocked as long as it's attacking alone. If Gutter Shortcut would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Jacob Hawken, Inspector, 1 and a blue for a 0/2 legendary creature, Human Advisor. Tap to draw a card, then exile a card from your hand face down. You may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. You may pay 4 and 2 blue. If you do, transform Jacob Hawken, Inspector. On the back, Hawken's Insight, legendary enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library face down. You may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a spell from among the cards exiled with this permanent without paying its mana cost. Lantern Bearer, 1 blue for a 1/1 creature, Spirit. Flying, Disturb, 2 and a blue. Backside, Lantern's Lift, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has flying. If Lantern's Lift would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Mirror Hall Mimic, 3 and a blue for a 0/0 creature, Spirit. You may have Mirror Hall Mimic enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's a spirit in addition to its other types. Disturb for 3 and 2 blue. Backside, Ghastly Mimicry, enchant creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of enchanted creature, except it's a spirit in addition to its other types. If Ghastly Mimicry would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Mischievous Catgeist, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 creature, cat spirit. Whenever Mischievous Catgeist deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Disturb for 2 and a blue. Backside, Cat-like Curiosity, enchant creature. Enchanted creature has, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. If Cat-like Curiosity would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Soul Cipher Board, 1 and a blue for an artifact. Soul Cipher Board enters the battlefield with 3 omen counters on it. 1 and a blue, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your graveyard. Whenever a creature card is put into your graveyard from anywhere, remove an omen counter from Soul Cipher Board. Then if it has no omen counters on it, transform it. Cipher-Bound Spirit, 3/2 creature, Spirit, flying. Cipher-Bound Spirit can block only creatures with flying. 3 and a blue, draw 2 cards, then discard a card. Bloodsworn Squire, 3 and a black for a 3/3 creature, vampire soldier. 1 and a black. Discard a card. Bloodsworn Squire gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. Then if there are 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard, transform Bloodsworn Squire. On the back, Bloodsworn Knight. Star creature, Vampire Knight. Bloodsworn Knights' power and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. 1 and a black, discard a card. Bloodsworn Knight gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. Catapult Fodder. 1/5 creature zombie for 2 and a black. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 3 or more creatures that each have toughness greater than their power, transform Catapult Fodder. On the back, Catapult Captain. Creature, zombie, 2/6. 2 and a black, sacrifice and tap. Sacrifice another creature. Target opponent loses life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. Concealing Curtains. Black for creature wall 0/4. Defender. 2 and a black. Transform Concealing Curtains. Activate only as a sorcery. Backside, Revealing Eye. 3/4 creature, Eye Horror. Menace. When this creature transforms into Revealing Eye, target opponent reveals their hand. You may choose a non-land card from it. If you do that, player discards that card, then draws a card. Desperate Farmer. 2 and a black for a 2/2 creature, human peasant. Lifelink. Whenever another creature you control dies, when another creature you control dies, transform Desperate Farmer. Depraved Harvester. 4/3 creature, human knight, lifelink. Henrika Domnathi. 2 and 2 black for a 1/3 legendary creature, vampire, flying. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose one that hasn't been chosen. Each player sacrifices a creature. You draw a card and you lose 1 life. Transform Henrika Domnathi. Backside. Henrika Infernal Seer. 3/4 legendary creature, vampire, flying, death touch, lifelink. 1 and 2 black. Each creature you control with flying, death touch, and or lifelink gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Innocent Traveler. 2 and 2 black. For a 1/3 creature, human. At the beginning of your upkeep, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. If no one does, transform Innocent Traveler. Ragged Recluse. 1 and a black. Oops, I forgot to transform. Innocent Traveler is a 1/3 creature, human. On the back, Malicious Invader. 3/3 creature, vampire. Flying. Malicious Invader gets +2/+0 as long as an opponent controls a human. Ragged Recluse. 1 and a black for a 2/1 creature, human peasant. At the beginning of your end step, if you discarded a card this turn, transform Ragged Recluse. On the back, Odious Witch. Creature, human, warlock, 3/3. Whenever Odious Witch attacks, defending player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Restless Blood Seeker. 1 and a black for a 1/3 creature, vampire. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, create a blood token. Sacrifice 2 blood tokens, transform Restless Blood Seeker. Activate only as a sorcery. Blood-Soaked Reveler, 3/3 creature, vampire. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, create a blood token. 4 and a black, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Voldaren Bloodcaster. 2/1 for a creature. 1 and a black for a 2/1 creature, vampire wizard. Flying. Whenever Voldaren Bloodcaster or another non-token creature you control dies, create a blood token. Whenever you create a blood token, if you control 5 or more blood tokens, transform Voldaren Bloodcaster. On the back, Blood Bat Summoner. Creature, vampire, wizard, 3/3 flying. At the beginning of combat on your turn, up to 1 target blood token creature you control. Up to 1 target blood token you control becomes a 2/2 black bat creature with flying and haste in addition to its other types. Alluring Suitor. 2 and a red for a creature, vampire. When you attack with exactly 2 creatures, transform Alluring Suitor. Deadly Dancer. 3/3 creature, vampire, trample. When this creature transforms into Deadly Dancer, add 2 red. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. 2 red. Deadly Dancer and another target creature each get +1/+0 until end of turn. Ballista Watcher. 2 and 2 red for a 4/3 creature, human, soldier, werewolf. 2 and a red and tap. Ballista Watcher deals 1 damage to any target. Daybound. On the back, Ballista Wielder, 5/5 creature werewolf. 2 and a red, Ballista Wielder deals 1 damage to any target. A creature dealt damage this way can't block this turn. Nightbound. Fearful Villager, 2 and a red. For a 2/3 creature, human werewolf, menace, daybound. On the back, Fearsome Werewolf, 4/3 for a creature, werewolf, menace, nightbound. Ill-Tempered Loner, 2 and 2 red for a creature, human werewolf, 3/3. Whenever Ill-Tempered Loner is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any target. 1 and a red, Ill-Tempered Loner gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Daybound. On the back, Howlpack Avenger, 4/4 creature, werewolf. Whenever a permanent you control is dealt damage, Howlpack Avenger deals that much damage to any target. 1 and a red, Howlpack Avenger gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Nightbound. Lamholt Raconteur, 3 and a red for a 2/4 creature, human werewolf. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Lamholt Raconteur does 1 damage to each opponent. Daybound. On the back, Lamholt Ravager, 4/4 creature, werewolf. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Lamholt Ravager deals 2 damage to each opponent. Nightbound. Volatile Arsonist, 3 and 2 red for a creature, human werewolf, 4/4 menace, haste. Whenever Volatile Arsonist attacks, it deals 1 damage to each of up to 1 target creature, up to 1 target player, and or up to 1 target planeswalker. Daybound. Voltaic Visionary, 1 and a red for a 3/1 creature, human wizard. Tap. Voltaic Visionary deals 2 damage to you. Exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. When you play a card exiled with Voltaic Visionary, transform Voltaic Visionary. Volt Charged Berserker, 4/3. Volt Charged Berserker can't block. Weary Prisoner, creature, human werewolf, 3 and a red for a 2/6, defender, daybound. On the back, Wrathful Jailbreaker, 6/6 for a creature, werewolf. Wrathful Jailbreaker attacks each combat if able. Nightbound. Avabruck Caretaker, 4 and 2 green for a 4/4 creature, human werewolf. Hexproof. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control. Daybound. On the back, Hollowhenge Huntmaster, 6/6 creature, werewolf. Hexproof. Other permanents you control have hexproof. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Dormant Grove, 3 and a green, enchantment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then, if that creature has toughness 6 or greater, transform Dormant Grove. On the back, Gnarled Grove Strider, 3/6 creature, treefolk, vigilance. Other creatures you control have vigilance. Hookhand Mariner, 3 and a green for a creature, human werewolf, 4/4, daybound. On the back, Riphook Raider, 6/4 creature, werewolf. Riphook Raider can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Nightbound. Howlpack Piper, 3 and a green for a 2/2 creature, human werewolf. This spell can't be countered. 1 and a green and tap, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. If it's a wolf or werewolf, untap Howlpack Piper. Activate only as a sorcery, daybound. On the back, Wild Song Howler, 4/4 creature, werewolf. Whenever this creature enters the battlefield or transforms into Wild Song Howler, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. Nightbound. Infestation Expert, 4 and a green for a 3/4 creature, human werewolf. Whenever Infestation Expert enters the battlefield or attacks, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. Daybound. On the back, Infested Werewolf, 4/5 creature, werewolf. Whenever Infested Werewolf enters the battlefield or attacks, create 2 1/1 green insect creature tokens, Nightbound. Oakshade Stalker, 2 and a green for a 3/3 creature, human ranger werewolf. You may cast this spell as though it had flash if you pay 2 more to cast it, Daybound. Ulvenwald Oddity, 2 and 2 green for a 4/4 creature beast. Trample Haste, 5 and 2 green, transform Ulvenwald Oddity. On the back, Ulvenwald Behemoth, 8/8 creature beast horror. Trample Haste. Other creatures you control get +1/+1 and have trample and haste. Weaver of Blossoms, 2 and a green for a 2/3 creature, human werewolf. Tap to add 1 mana of any color, Daybound. Blossom-clad Werewolf, creature, werewolf, 3/4. Tap to add 2 mana of any 1 color. Wolfkin Outcast, 5 and a green for a 5/4 creature, human werewolf. This spell costs 2 less to cast if you control a wolf or werewolf, Daybound. On the back, Wedding Crasher, 6/5 creature, werewolf. Whenever Wedding Crasher or another wolf or werewolf you control dies, draw a card, Nightbound. Brine Comber, 1 white-blue for a 1/1 creature, spirit. Whenever Brine Comber enters the battlefield or becomes the target of an aura spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. Disturb white-blue. On the back, Brinebound Gift, enchant creature. Whenever Brinebound Gift enters the battlefield or enchanted creature becomes the target of an aura spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. If Brinebound Gift would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Child of the Pack, 2 red-green for a 2/5 creature, human werewolf. 2 red-green, create a 2/2 green wolf creature token, Daybound. On the back, Savage Packmate, 5/5 werewolf. Trample. Other creatures you control get +1/+0, Nightbound. Dorothea, Vengeful Victim, white-blue. For a 4/4 legendary creature, spirit. Flying. When Dorothea, Vengeful Victim attacks or blocks, sacrifice it at the end of combat. Disturb 1 white-blue. Dorothea's Retribution. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has, whenever this creature attacks, create a 4/4 white spirit creature token with flying that's tapped and attacking. Sacrifice that token at end of combat. If Dorothea's Retribution would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Edgar, Charmed Groom, 2 white-black for a 4/4 legendary creature, vampire noble. Other vampires you control get +1/+1. When Edgar, Charmed Groom dies, return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. On the back, Edgar Markov's Coffin, legendary artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white and black vampire creature token with lifelink and put a bloodline counter on Edgar Markov's Coffin. Then, if there are 3 or more bloodline counters on it, remove those counters and transform it. Runo Stromkirk, 1 blue-black for a 1/4 legendary creature, vampire cleric. Flying. When Runo Stromkirk enters the battlefield, put up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card. If a creature card with mana value 6 or greater is revealed this way, transform Runo Stromkirk. On the back, Crothus, Lord of the Deep, a 3/5 legendary creature, Kraken Horror. Flying. Whenever Crothus, Lord of the Deep attacks, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. If that creature is a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent, create 2 of those tokens instead. Foreboding Statue. Artifact creature construct for 3 mana. Tap to add 1 mana of any color. Put an omen counter on Foreboding Statue. At the beginning of your end step, if there are 3 or more omen counters on Foreboding Statue, untap it and then transform it.